Hey everyone! You ever feel like technology's this race we're barely keeping up with in the classroom? Like
Yeah.
you need to be more than just the teacher. You've got to be the tech wizard too.
Yeah, it can be tough,
Yeah,
especially with things changing so quickly.
exactly.
Yeah.
So this deep dive, it's for you. We're going to break down a real-world Linux assignment. And not just the how-to steps, but the why behind them. So you can stand above that material, feel confident.
Confidence is key. And you might be thinking, Linux, servers. I teach history, not computer
I
science.
know, right?
But trust me, the concepts here, they apply way beyond the tech stuff. It's a masterclass in how tech works, which is relevant to any subject you teach.
I love that. Okay, so our source material, it's this assignment. It's pretty detailed, all about installing and configuring two kinds of Linux. Ubuntu Server, which is like the behind-the-scenes powerhouse, and Linux Mint, which is more for like everyday users.
And what's really cool is they use VMware Workstation Pro to do this. You build virtual machines. It's like having a whole separate computer inside your existing one, a sandbox to play around in without messing up your actual system. Low stakes experimentation, just what we want for our students.
Right.
Great.
I love that. Okay, so the assignment, it lays out the steps, but we're going deeper. I'm already intrigued by like just the structure of it. It talks about like learning objectives and learning outcomes.
Oh, yeah, that's not an accident. That mirrors how good lesson plans are built. Learning objectives, those are the big goals. What you want students to understand broadly. Outcomes are the specific, measurable skills they should gain. This assignment, it's modeling best practices right from the start.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Hmm.
I'm already seeing how this is useful for me, even if I never touch a server. Clear goals, clear outcomes. That's good teaching 101. Okay, now into the techie stuff. One term that popped up was VMnet 8, and they mentioned NAT, network address translation. I know those are important, but I'm a little fuzzy on the details.
Okay, sure. Think of it like this. Your school has one public phone number, right?
Uh-huh.
But inside, there are tons of extensions. NAT is like that for your virtual machines. It lets them all share your computer's internet connection, while appearing as one to the outside world.
Okay, that's making a little more sense now. So it's managing the traffic, making sure everything runs smoothly, even though there's a whole bunch of virtual stuff happening behind the scenes.
Exactly. And you can see how this relates to managing internet access for, let's say, a whole classroom of laptops, tablets, whatever. It's all about sharing resources efficiently and securely.
Okay, that's helpful. That connects it to my world. Now, the assignment starts with installing Linux Mint, which seems a bit less intimidating. All right, how about you?
It's designed to be, yeah.
Yeah.
They walk you through choosing how much CPU power, RAM, and disk space to give your virtual machine, which is really important.
That makes sense, but honestly, why does it matter if I give it 4 GB of RAM versus 8? It's virtual, right?
But that's where understanding the why gets interesting. Just like in a classroom, resources are limited. If a program doesn't have enough RAM, it'll run slowly, maybe crash. Just like a student trying to work in a crowded, noisy room.
Yeah.
Too much, and you're wasting potential that other programs could be using.
Okay, whoa. Yeah, I see the parallel there. So even in this virtual world, these choices have real consequences, just like how I allocate resources in my classroom.
Precisely. And think about the educational software your students use.
Mhm.
Understanding these basic specs helps you troubleshoot if things are running slow or advocate for better equipment if you need it.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got Linux Mint going. Now the assignment switches to Ubuntu Server. And things seem to get a little more intense. Would you say so?
Well, yeah, Ubuntu Server is like the behind-the-scenes workhorse. Think of it like the school's electrical system. Most people don't interact with it directly, but without it, nothing works. The instructions are more detailed because you're basically building that infrastructure.
Got it. So it's like going from setting up a comfy classroom to actually understanding how the building itself is wired. What kind of core concepts does this part of the assignment highlight?
One of the big ones is IP addresses. Every device on a network needs a unique identifier, just like every house needs a street address. And the assignment, it walks you through giving your Ubuntu server a static IP address.
Okay, so it's how computers find each other, just like we need addresses to send mail.
Mm.
What about this SSH thing? They mentioned secure shell, but like, what does that actually do?
Think of it as a remote control for your server. Instead of being physically at the computer, SSH lets you connect securely from anywhere. Make changes, fix things, all through text commands.
Oh, so it's like I can adjust the school's thermostat from my phone instead of going down to the boiler room.
Mm.
Very handy.
Exactly. Another thing they emphasize is updating the system. Might seem like a chore, but it's like making sure the school building is safe. Fire alarms checked, exits clear, everything up to code. Those updates contain security fixes, bug fixes, all sorts of important stuff.
Makes sense. Security is always a priority. Speaking of checking things, the assignment has you take screenshots all along the way. Why are those so important? Just to prove you did the work.
Documentation is key, yeah. But it's more than that. Screenshots are like your thought process made visible. If something goes wrong later, you can see where you might have made a mistake. And if things go right, it's proof you achieved the outcome.
That's a really cool way to think about it. It's like when we ask students to show their work in math, it helps them understand their own thinking and helps us see where they might need extra support.
Exactly. And for teachers, having that documented record of your tech journey can be super valuable. If you need to teach this to students later or help them troubleshoot, you've got your own reference guide.
What's striking me is how much this assignment is about how and why things work, not just what to do, which is exactly what I was hoping for.
And that's the real power here. We're not just learning to install Linux, we're learning about fundamental concepts that apply to all sorts of technology. And that understanding, that's what helps you, stand above the material and become a more confident, tech-savvy educator. As we were digging into that assignment, I kept noticing how much it emphasizes the how and why behind the technology.
Yeah, it really does. And I think that's key for teachers. That deeper understanding. It's like you don't have to be a mechanic to drive a car, but knowing how the engine works helps you diagnose problems, maybe even fix them yourself.
Exactly. It's about taking ownership of the tech, not feeling like you're at its mercy. And that confidence, that translates to your students too.
Absolutely. If I'm excited about understanding the tech, they're going to pick up on that. Creates a different kind of learning environment. So how does the assignment actually achieve that? What's baked into it that encourages this kind of thinking?
Well, the screenshot requirement is a great example. It's not just about proving you did the work. It's forcing you to pay attention to the details, to analyze what you're doing at each step.
It's like that saying, the best way to learn something is to teach it. Taking those screenshots is almost like preparing to teach someone else. So you have to really understand it.
Exactly. And that process of thinking it through, explaining it to yourself, that's where the deeper learning happens.
Another thing I like is that the assignment, it doesn't shy away from technical terms, but it explains them in a way that's not overwhelming.
Right.
Like IP addresses, SSH, NAT. Those could easily sound like gibberish, but they break it down.
Right, and they use those analogies, to make it relatable. Comparing an IP address to a street address, for example, suddenly it's not this abstract, scary thing anymore.
It's so true. Analogies can be so powerful, especially for those of us who aren't super techie. It helps demystify the whole thing.
And once you see that technology is really just a set of concepts, tools that can be learned, it becomes a lot less intimidating.
It's like learning a new language, right?
Yeah.
At first it seems impossible, but with practice and guidance, you can become fluent.
Exactly. And just like with language, the more you understand the grammar of technology, the more you can express yourself with it.
Ooh, I like that.
Oh.
Okay, another thing. The assignment provides context for each step. It explains not just what you're doing, but why you're doing it, how it fits into the goal of setting up this working Linux environment.
That's so crucial. It's the difference between blindly following a recipe and understanding the science behind baking. When you know why each ingredient is important, you become a better baker.
That's such a good analogy. So instead of just clicking buttons, I'm understanding the logic of the system, how it all works together.
And that kind of systems thinking is so valuable, not just for tech, but for life in general. It helps you see the bigger picture, solve problems more effectively.
Now, I'm curious about the choice of Linux distributions for this assignment. Why Ubuntu Server and Linux Mint?
Well, they're both very popular, but for different reasons. Ubuntu Server is known for its stability and security. It's a workhorse, powering a lot of websites and online services. It's a great choice for learning, like the fundamentals of server management.
So it's like the reliable engine that keeps everything running smoothly behind the scenes. What about Linux Mint then? Why is that a good choice for the more user-friendly side of the assignment?
Linux Mint is designed to be very approachable, especially for people who are used to Windows or Mac OS. It has a familiar desktop environment and comes preloaded with a lot of useful software.
So it's like the friendly face of Linux, the one that welcomes you in and makes you feel comfortable.
Exactly. It's a great way to get started with Linux without feeling overwhelmed.
I also like that the assignment highlights the differences between these two distributions. It shows that Linux isn't just one thing, it's this diverse ecosystem with different flavors for different purposes.
Right, and that's a really important point. There's no one-size-fits-all solution in tech. The best tool depends on what you're trying to accomplish.
It's like choosing the right teaching method for your students,
Yeah.
right? Some respond better to visual learning, others to auditory. It's about finding that best fit.
Exactly. And by exposing students to this diversity early on, we're encouraging them to be critical thinkers about technology, to evaluate their options, make informed choices.
Okay, now one thing that really stands out to me in this assignment is how much emphasis it puts on configuring the network settings. Why is that so important?
Well, networking is like the circulatory system of the digital world. It's how information flows between devices, how they communicate. Without it, computers are isolated islands.
And in today's world, being connected is everything.
Exactly. And the assignment really dives deep into that, focusing on configuring the virtual machines to have internet access through VMnet using NAT.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
But you explained NAT earlier with the phone system analogy. So how does that apply to this specific setup?
It's the same principle. VMnet 8 is like your school's internal phone network. NAT allows all the virtual machines on that network to share a single internet connection, just like all the phones in your school share a single external line.
Okay, so efficiency and security again, making sure everything runs smoothly and everyone has access to what they need.
Precisely. And the assignment even has you note down specific details about that VMnet 8 configuration, like the subnet IP, default gateway, DNS servers, DHCP range.
Okay, I admit, those are some terms that make my head spin a little.
Yeah.
What's the significance of knowing all those details?
Think of it like having a map of your school's network infrastructure. It shows you how everything is connected, where the different devices are located, how information flows between them.
So it's not just knowing that the network exists, it's about understanding how it's organized, how the pieces fit together.
Exactly. And that understanding can be really helpful for troubleshooting problems. If you know how the network is supposed to work, you can more easily identify where things are going wrong.
It's like knowing the layout of your classroom. If a light goes out, you know exactly which switch to flip.
Precisely. And by understanding the network settings in this assignment, you're gaining a deeper understanding of how networks function in general, something that's relevant to any technology you use.
We were talking about documentation before, and I'm realizing those screenshot requirements are really clever.
Yeah, it's like a built-in reflection process, Instead of just clicking through, you stop, you capture what you see, and you think, okay, why does this matter?
And they don't just say, take a screenshot.
Mm-hmm.
It's very specific. Like with Linux Mint, one of the first things they want is a screenshot of the virtual machine settings.
Right, the CPU, RAM, disk space, those decisions, they impact performance. Documenting that right at the start is crucial.
Like choosing the right size container for your experiment, right?
Yeah.
Too small, things overflow. Too big, you're wasting resources.
Exactly. And it gets students thinking about those choices right away. Then there's that screenshot of the terminal showing the host name and username. Seems simple, but...
It's a fundamental verification step.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Like making sure you sign in with the right credentials before you start working on, a shared document. Easy to overlook, but essential for security.
And then you got that screenshot of the output from the command.
That one's a bit more technical. It's showing the virtual machine's network address, its unique ID on the network.
Like making sure your house has the right address so people can find you.
Exactly. In a network, IP addresses are how computers talk to each other. And you see that same focus on verification with the Ubuntu server screenshots too. Hostname, username, IP address, it's all about confirming things are set up right.
Just like laying the foundation of a house. Got to make sure it's solid before you build on top of it.
And that attention to detail, that understanding of the foundational stuff, it carries through the whole assignment.
It's amazing how much we've covered just by looking at this one assignment. Networks, servers, the command line.
Resource allocation, even like bigger educational philosophies.
And we did it all through the lens of a teacher who wants to be above the material. That's been our guiding principle, right?
Absolutely. Because in the end, it's not about becoming a Linux guru overnight. It's about developing a deeper understanding of how tech works so you can guide your students confidently.
Exactly. And that confidence comes from knowing the why behind the what. Being able to connect those dots, see the bigger picture, make good decisions about tech in your classroom.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And for any teachers listening who might be feeling a little overwhelmed by all this tech stuff that's always changing, I think this assignment's a good reminder that you don't have to know everything.
It's about being curious, asking questions, and finding good resources.
Exactly. And that's what these deep dives are all about. We're taking a closer look at the things that make us go, huh, I wonder how that works. And we explore them together.
And hopefully by the end, you're feeling a little smarter, a little more empowered, and a lot more excited about what tech can do.
That's a great way to put it. So for everyone listening out there, keep exploring, keep asking those questions, and keep pushing yourselves to stand above the material.
Because when you do that, you're not just teaching your students about technology, you're teaching them how to be curious, how to be resourceful, how to be lifelong learners.
And those are skills that are going to help them no matter what they do in life.
Absolutely. So until next time, keep diving deep, keep learning, and keep sharing what you find with everyone else.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time for another one.